Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Kansas City-based jazz vocalist Deborah Brown. During the special interview with this Kansas City jazz icon, she talked about the upcoming May 31st, 2018 show at the Gem Theater off Historic 18th and Vine, and there's a lot of historical importance to this. It features world-class musicians like Bobby Watson, Sylswester Ostrowski, and the Kansas City Jazz Orchestra. The goal of the show is furthering the building of bridges between Kansas City, Europe, and the world using jazz as the passport. She talked about this show, the future of jazz, Kansas City, and much more. So please dig it.
Deborah, thanks for taking a minute out to talk about the show. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. I appreciate you doing that.
Right on. So let's go ahead and start off here and talk about this upcoming Gem show with Bobby Watson, Sylswester Ostrowski, the Kansas City Jazz Orchestra. Stellar lineup. The mission is to spread jazz. Talk to me about what's going on with this show.
I can't talk about the show without mentioning Sylswester Ostrowski. Now, he's been here to Kansas City before, but I started working with him about 4 years ago. And I started with another musician from New York, and we were in Poland together. And that started off a role of kind of an admiration for Kansas City jazz. And so what he did, and progressively through the years, is hire different musicians from Kansas City at my request. One of my first requests was for Kevin Mahogany to come and do a concert with me, and Kevin was able to come perform a concert. And then the next request he said, well, who else would you like to bring? And I said, well, why don't we bring another artist from Kansas City, Bobby Watson? So he said, sure, I'd love that, you know. So he's a saxophone player himself. Sylswester is a saxophone player himself, so he was thrilled. And so Bobby Watson came over. We had a great show. The next suggestion was, why don't we bring Kevin back and have him as a guest artist on your Kansas City Here I Come CD? So Kevin came back, and we did this CD, and that was really great, you know, and great project. And then he says, well, I tell you what, we're going to have our jazz festival. Why don't we do a whole day of Kansas City? So their jazz festival this spring on a whole day was music from Kansas City, and I invited Herman Mahari, Dominique Sanders, Peter Schlem, and Mike Warren to perform as a group, and also Bobby Watson came, and then I was on the show as well. So it started out innocently, but we now have a huge presence on the scene in this small city in Poland, and this is where Sylswester is a cultural attaché, but he's also an avid saxophone player and jazz musician, and he brings musicians from all over the world to this small city called Szczecin. And so what we decided to do after that was partner and become a jazz sister city, which is the big announcement that we have for next Thursday. So this is going to facilitate having musicians not only from Kansas City, but from all over the world to go to Szczecin, Poland, as well as other countries that will be a part of the Jazz Sister Cities. So already I've connected them with a jazz festival in Ystad, Sweden. And we went there and took a chamber orchestra with the 14 strings, and we went on tour, and we went to one of the countries we went to was Sweden. So now we have a lot of different other experiences like that, but it actually is stemming from the inspiration from jazz in Kansas City. So that's what this project is. This project is to celebrate our cooperation with each other in being able to bring jazz musicians from Kansas City to different places around the world. It's an international organization.
Beautiful. Now, how often does this happen where another city, say in Europe or around the world, teams up with a city in America? Is this a common thing?
Well, it's the first time I've ever heard Jazz Sister Cities.
Beautiful. That's what I'm trying to get at, is that this sounds like an original template.
It's unique. Yep.
Yeah, that's
for
beautiful.
Sure.
You'll have a big announcement. You'll play the show. What do you want the crowd to get out of this? I mean, there's a lot of things that are going to be going on, a lot of excitement in the air, but what do you want the crowd to walk away with?
I want them to walk away with that we are a city of that deserves to be treated special because of our connection with the past and with jazz history. One of the reasons we're doing it at the Gem Theater is because this is the Jazz District. What better place for it to be in the Jazz District? We want people in Kansas City to know that we're a city that's being put on the map, whether we like it or not, because people in Europe love what we're doing here. And we want this city to understand that they need to be open to different countries coming here and performing, as well as them taking our artists and going abroad. Now, this is the thing. Kansas City artists are in all different kind of genres around the planet. And this is this tradition that we've had for many years. There are musicians in great pop groups and blues bands and jazz bands. However, this is really going to put a hat on it. This is really going to make a statement that it's a jazz sister city.
You know, the one thing I think about are all of those State Department trips that were kind of spearheaded for years and years, and jazz musicians would go in, and it was a real goodwill testament. Do you find this teaming up, being a sister city, is a goodwill testament, especially in our kind of political climate when it's good to kind of escape into music?
You know, for me personally, I look at it as just connecting people, because there's so many people that are looking for young artists that are saying something new and different in jazz. And one of those testaments, of course, is with Herman Mahari being in Paris right now. People like Logan Richardson, who's exploring Paris and Italy right now. People are looking for that in Europe, to find young artists that are willing to come to their country. That's always been true since the 30s, since the 20s and 30s. Musicians in America have always been going abroad. So I don't think there's anything new. I don't think it has anything to do with the political climate. As a matter of fact, I've always felt like jazz is a music. We're jazz musicians. We're not politicians. So I don't think it's a political thing. I just think it's a cultural thing that we're sharing, that we actually have a culture that people are interested in, and we need to recognize that this is something that's unique, and it's not going to change. It's always going to be unique.
You know, Kansas City has always been a cradle of jazz. We've always mattered. We've obviously had heydays, but we're doing pretty good in 2018. Tell me why Kansas City jazz matters so much on a global scale in 2018.
It matters because of the way that jazz is played here. People say, and you can actually hear it, we have a different way of playing jazz than someone in California or even someone in New York. We have a different kind of tempo, different kind of groove, different kind of beat that's unique. That's quite unique for the jazz, and we don't want that to be lost. People like Everett Devan, who taught many singers here, people like Sonny Kinner, or people like Frank Smith, or those kind of people taught my generation. And now Bobby and even myself, we're teaching and passing that feeling on to others. It may not be in the form of students like as strong as Bobby, but as far as me, is whenever I go out, students come and they hear it, and they get the idea. So I think right now in 2018, that even though we're doing this classic music form of jazz, it's still important to be able to pass this on to the next generation, so that that distinction will still be unique for Kansas City.
Beautiful. I like the way that answer was kind of wrapped and summed everything up. Good luck with the upcoming shows. Thank you for what you do for Kansas City Jazz. And again, thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz. I appreciate it.
And you're international as well, too, Gerald. You are. Your interviews are all over the world. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. And I look forward to seeing you on the 31st.
Okay, bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Poland, Kansas City, and spots all over the globe, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Deborah for her tireless devotion to jazz and that legendary voice. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
When we were at fun.
Neon Jazz.